CrowdStrike stock that Cabot has liked, cybersecurity stock, um, had a very bad day or night. They're basically was it a Microsoft or sorry, a Windows related update went awry and it crashed basically the entire global tech system. Airlines grounded. And I went into a
Yeah,
Starbucks this morning and their stuff was down, so they had people on iPads up front taking mobile orders.
yeah,
uh,
CrowdStrike rolled out an update to um, Microsoft computers that, as I understand it, was a kernel update that essentially just bricked the computers,
right.
caused them to go into like a blue screen of death, right? If you're a PC owner, you're familiar with that. Um, but it essentially just locks up the system, and then it prevented major airlines from operating. As I'd seen, there were airlines that were having to like manually check people into flights, but it didn't disrupt all air travel. It was a system issue, but it resulted in um, Delta, United, and I think maybe Southwest basically grounding all flights. Um, there were some financial institutions, hospitals that were impacted. It was a really bad tech rollout, but as I understand it, they got a fix implemented pretty quickly and were able to reverse it. And a lot of those systems are sort of back in effect.
It
Right
wasn't a
now,
hack. It was not a
no.
hack, which is what the initial impression was. And if you're a cybersecurity company that gets hacked and takes down the whole global system, that might have been like a death knell potentially for CrowdStrike. It seems
Yeah,
more like a
it's sloppy work.
yeah.
It's a bad update that they rolled out. It happens with technology all the time. I mean, if you've updated your iPhone, you've probably gotten an update from Apple, and then a few days later you see a fix get rolled out. It's fairly common. But if you are probably the premier, or at least one of the most well-known, as you said, security providing technology companies, you sort of have to be perfect.
Right.
It's like you're like an offensive lineman. Nobody notices you until you screw up.
Right. That's a good way.
Um,
Yeah.
so
Mike compared it in his letter to his readers this morning to what when Chipotle started. I think it was Mike, or was it you? And I think it was Mike. Was it back in 2016 when they started poisoning customers all over the country accidentally?
yeah,
E. coli, I think it was, or different bacterias. Um, that may have been a little different when you're a food company that and the food is bad. But I don't know. Maybe it is pretty similar.
I like
But
the
yeah,
analogy,
yeah,
right? Like your the baseline level of performance you expect from any restaurant is that it's not going to make you sick,
yeah,
right? It might not be the best food in the world, but as long as it doesn't make you sick, it's delivering on its baseline. That's sort of a similar expectation with what people have with technology. As long as it doesn't break my entire system, or as long as it doesn't prevent me from using my tech stack entirely, even if you don't catch every security threat, or even if you are slow to maybe adapt to one, okay, that's sort of understandable. But when you start bricking computers, you're violating that sort of baseline standard of performance, which
yeah,
I think is part of, it's one part of why Crowd has been hammered. It's down 12% right now today. But one of the things that I was looking at, it's trading at a PE of 548 right now.
hmm
Um, and we were just talking about how overbought tech was appearing and how we were seeing rotation into other undervalued names. You just don't have as much margin for error when you're priced to perfection, whether that comes to earnings reports that are not killing it, or when it comes to making technical mistakes. When you are priced to perfection, you're priced to perfection on all fronts, and that means that these mistakes that Intel's not going to go down 12% if it was a flaw in Intel chips, right? Especially if it was something where it was like a software flaw where they could roll out an easy fix. Um, you wouldn't see that same kind of response from something that was more fairly valued. So,
yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, and it's only down to it's right up against its June lows from last month. So far the damage has been sort of orderly. It did peak as high as 392 beginning of this month, so it's down from 392 to 300. So that's not nothing. But Chipotle, we're following that analogy. Chipotle did eventually bounce back, and it's fine now, but took some time. So might not be the best time to on CrowdStrike. Something
Well,
I'll have to
the
read
other
about.
thing is, all right, so you and I, we work for a company, right? We've gone through technical upgrades and we've changed technical service providers and stuff. There's a really high threshold for somebody like Microsoft to come in and say, you know what, we're going to stop allowing CrowdStrike with all these organizations that rely on Microsoft or with us as a provider. We're going to stop, we're going to change business partners and we're going to find an entirely new security company to use. It's it would need to be cataclysmic, I guess.
Hmm.
Like there's I just can't imagine that Microsoft essentially cuts ties with CrowdStrike
Yeah,
over one bad update because the amount of work that you have to put into evolving your tech stack is is such a hill to climb that it just doesn't seem feasible.
yeah,
So
probably not. Yeah, like I said, if this was an actual security breach, you might have seen that, but that's not what it was.